I'm Dan Ware. Welcome to another Frankly Franklin. It's football season again, and Franklin Simpson High School has a very proud football tradition. With me as my guests today are some people who have witnessed many seasons of Franklin Simpson football. I was trying to figure it up, and I'm sure they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but between the three of them, I think they together have close to 90 years as Pressbox people at Franklin Simpson football games. So let me introduce them to you. Seated closest to me is Gene Almand. Gene has been the statistician for Wildcat football for, Gene, is it 52, 53 years?
52,
what is it?
52.
52 years. Next to Gene is Harry Glen Hughes. Harry Glen has been the PA announcer at Franklin Simpson home football games for 31 years, I think you told me.
31 years.
Is that right?
That's right.
And my next guest, I promised her I wouldn't use numbers with her, but she's Dorothy Steers, and she was in the press box for a number of years. And before that, her late husband, Roy Steers, ran the clock for a number of years as well. So if I say 90 years between you, did I miss it by much?
Oh, there's more than that.
More than 90?
Yeah.
Do I hear 100? Going once?
Probably.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
okay, so that's a long time. And if you think that's something, Harry Glen, you correct me if I'm wrong, but ever since there's been a Franklin Simpson High School, I think the voice behind the mic at the home football games has been a Hughes. Is that right?
That's right.
So besides you, who else?
Excuse me. My brother Leroy started when they put the schools together and started football back here. And he did it until his son started playing football. And then my son, Brad, did it for 3 years. And then he graduated from Western, went to Hopkinsville. So then I took over, and I've been doing it since 1974.
All right, so Brad did it while he was college
Yes.
student. Okay. Well, you had kind of a family tradition to uphold, but I'm not sure who put the bug in the ear of you two ladies to get you started. Gene, that was a long time ago. Did you have a vision on the road to Damascus, or what got you in the
but
press
my
box?
father was a football junkie, and he followed Bowling Green High. Of course, I'm a graduate of Bowling Green High, and you'll forgive me for that.
And we'll try to overlook it. Yeah.
But my father
65 to nothing.
traveled with Bert Barone, who was the sports editor for the Daily News for many years, and it just came natural that I would do it. Someone told me one time that if they asked me if I wanted to go to a ball game, I didn't say what kind. I just said, let's go. So it's been a real rewarding time.
All right, and Dorothy, when did Roy start keeping the
I
clock?
don't know, but I was going to say about that, if I'd have had a nickel for every athletic event I've seen,
Uh-huh.
I'd be wealthy today. Roy ran the clock for years, I don't know how many, before Lee started playing in the fall of 1962 when he was a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
And as I told you when we were talking about this, he was conscientious, and he thought maybe that some of the coaches might think that he might favor Franklin because Lee was playing. So he offered to quit, but they wouldn't hear to it, which was quite complimentary. So that was 1962. He was doing it before then.
Okay.
But I didn't start in the press. I started in the press box before he did because I was there more than 5 years before Roy died in 1980,
Okay.
and he was running the clock in the new stadium.
Okay.
But I was there. I think I was there when Leroy, some of the time when Leroy was.
Might have
Okay.
been, yeah.
So anyway, but Roy being there is what would get me there.
Okay. Now, he ran the clock. You were statistician. You were PA. What was your job?
I ran the scoreboard.
The scoreboard. Okay.
I did the downs and the yardages, and of
Not
course.
always right.
No, they had a lot of problem with that.
And Harry and I sat next to each other, and he'd have 3rd and 2, and I'd have 3rd and 1, and then we'd argue about it, and we'd say, well, it's 3rd and 1.5, and I mean, we had a lot of fun back and forth like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was before we got the fancier scoreboards. They weren't as fancy to begin with the
Mhm.
downs and the yardages.
Well, you mentioned something
And the
about
score.
you started before the new stadium, and probably a lot of people watching this program don't know what you mean, because if I'm remembering correctly, the stadium we're playing in now, which is the new stadium to all of us, that opened in '67. That's been, what, 38 years ago? So that's the new one. It's 38 years old. What was, of course, we all know, but probably a lot of people don't, where was the old stadium and what did it look like?
Well, it's right over here where the school is.
Where the high school stands today.
High
was
school, where the
old-
high school's on it,
That's right. That's right. The high school was built on the football field.
because they played baseball there
Baseball.
too. Little League baseball and all kinds of baseball on the same field.
Well, inside the press box, we had all of you all with your jobs, the clock operator. But in addition to that, from the time we had a radio station, there was a long tradition of the games being on the radio. So how many people did that involve, and were there other people? Typically, how many people are in the press box with a job to do? Now, I'm not talking about the ones that come in there.
It's according to what the weather is. If it's raining, there's a good crowd.
Okay, but you
Well,
got
there's a
announcers,
radio
you got
operator.
spotters, you got what?
The radio operator, and then the one who sits by Gene, and then me, and then Harry, and then the people from the other team.
Of course, now the radio station gets 4 seats. It takes 3 now to run the 35-second clock, the clock, and the scoreboard. And then Harry Glen. And Harry Glen has a spotter. And I'd say that Mr. Snyder's done an excellent job
He
the last
certainly
few
has.
years, and we hope that he continues
Hope he will
with it.
continue to do so.
And then on the left end of the booth, as you look out on the football field, will be the visiting radio station and the Daily News, if it's an important enough game that they're covering it.
Well, now, I've got a picture here that Gene provided to me, came out of an old annual of the old field. I know this is small, but if you look at the press box here, it's awfully small. How in the world did you get all those people that you're talking about into this little bitty building?
Very carefully. I believe it was double decked. And if you look at the picture, you can see that there was a wing added on after we got the radio station.
Right, over here,
So
okay.
there were that made room for more people there.
I remember that the part where Roy sat with the running the clock was separated from where you all were with the radio station.
Talking about the radio, for many, many years, you couldn't think about Franklin Simpson football without thinking about the voice that you heard on the radio. And I'm referring, of course, to the late Stan Portman, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But I'm sure you all knew Stan quite well. Gene, let me start with you. Kind of tell our viewers who maybe are younger than the 4 of us up here a little bit who Stan was and how he came to Franklin, and then I'll ask the rest of you to share some Stan stories with me.
Well, Stan was a graduate of the University of Kentucky, and he was in the journalism department there. And he was in the press box there in the Bear Bryant age. So he had been very spoiled and been to bowl games and well-traveled. And he came here in 1953, before we had the radio station, just as a sports writer for the Franklin Favorite. And then in 1954, when the radio went on the air, we could broadcast delayed. We had daylight to dark only. And then he became a reporter for the Franklin radio station, WFKN. And not only did he do the sports, he had the noon news and a sports report in the afternoon for all those many, many, many years. But it was a real treat to work with him all the years that we got to do it. And of course, as I thought back, I think it's really sad that he passed away before he got to do a live ball game when we could go and set up the way that we wanted to. I'm sure they remember maybe that when we first began going, we traveled with a huge reel-to-reel tape recorder, and it was heavy and had to carry it and lift it in a lot of hard places. Then we could use a cassette, and then finally when we could do it live, we didn't have to carry anything but a headset.
So as the technology advanced, it all got smaller, and you got to the left. Well, you're talking about lugging all that equipment around. How did the press box here, either the old one or the new one, compare with some of the press boxes that you all went into when you went on the road?
Well, I guess the worst one we were ever in, and I'm sure that Harry, Glen, and Dot both remember it because they travel with the Wildcats. I guess the worst one we ever had to get in was the one at Russellville that was up on the telephone poles, 40 feet in the air, and you climbed an open rung ladder to get up there. And one time when we were over there, it was pouring down rain, muddy, and it was really a chore to get up there, but we were able to sway in the breeze during the game and then safely get our bodies out. We've been places where we didn't have a press box at all. We broadcast off of the top of the ticket booth in Princeton. We broadcast out of the auditorium in Princeton. We were kicked out of the press box in Fort Knox because the general wanted to bring his party in. That shows you how important we shows you how important we were.
They had to do that one from the parking lot? What was
we were moved to other quarters. But I would say that Franklin Simpson's facilities compare favorably to the better places that we go. In fact, we do have windows, and we do have fans when it's hot and heaters when it's cold. And the school is kind enough to provide us with water or soft drinks that we can have. So it's a pleasure to work here in the Franklin Simpson Stadium.
Well, I never did go with them. See, I didn't travel away. I was just a spectator.
Doesn't sound like you missed a whole
I
lot.
just sat out, I'm like Dot, I just sat out in the stands and watched it
Yeah,
out.
I didn't travel with them.
So y'all didn't have to climb that telephone pole after Jean, man.
No.
No.
We weren't qualified to get up in the press box.
We'd sit down and watch her up there.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like quite an event. Did you ever get lost?
Oh, we got lost everywhere we went, every time we went. We did learn, though, if you stop and ask for directions and the people are sitting on the front porch drinking out of a fruit jar, you better be careful about the directions that you get. But Stan had lived in Lexington all his life, and we spent half of one afternoon going around New Circle Road trying to get out to go to the recreation bowl. No sense of direction at all.
Well, Henry told me one time about, I think it was Murray they played, and said that before y'all got back, you'd see the city limit sign from all four sides.
Well, of course, you know, we had some fans that had problems like that, too, because when we went to Owensboro one year, I think it was Jerry Flippin said he'd just go where the lights were, and he forgot that there were 4 football teams in Owensboro. So if he went to the lights, he might have gone to the wrong stadium.
Yeah. Well, I used to listen to the replay on Saturday morning of the games. And I still remember, I think I've got this right, you all correct me if I'm wrong, but Stan would come on and he would say something to the effect of, "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Sports fan, guys and dolls. Welcome to Franklin Simpson," something like that.
That was his signature.
Was that it?
That was his
What?
signature.
And Stan had this great radio voice. I mean, what was it like to be sitting next to Stan when he was, you know, because if you had an exciting play or whatever, he got excited.
He really got carried away, and one of the favorite stories all of us have is one of our stars, and I don't think it was Bear Stanley, it was someone removed from that. One night he had played all night and broken all kinds of records and went to the bench for a few minutes, and then when he went back in, Stan says, "We have a brand new player in the game."
And one thing about Stan that I remember very closely, and during his call in the game, he'd always say, "Check that."
Oh,
right.
yeah, check that. That's right.
He
check
would
that.
always say, "Check that."
And of course, he was loud, and he just added to sometimes the complexity that Harry and I would have. He'd call the yardage one thing, and Harry another, and me another. So that even added on.
Yeah, I was going to ask Harry about that. You've got this mic in front of you, and everybody in the stadium's going to hear what you're going to say. Well, if Jean says one thing and Dorothy says another,
Now, Jean puts hers down on paper.
She puts her on
doesn't say.
paper.
she doesn't open her mouth.
No, she doesn't open her
She
mouth.
just writes it down.
That's
All
one
right.
time I keep my mouth shut.
Okay. Well, anyway, what if you're hearing different things from different people?
Well, of course, Dot is just putting it on the scoreboard. see.
Okay.
Mine's
She's
very
not saying
obvious.
anything.
Are
I'm
you
the only
going
one
to say
to
what
say
she
anything.
puts up there, or are you going to?
And I say what I think it is, and she puts something else up there on the board.
And I put what I think it is, and lots of times we didn't agree.
Yeah.
But I think as much a signature for Franklin Simpson football now, as Stan was, is Harry Glen when the team comes on
Yeah,
the field
I
on
was gonna
Friday
come
night,
to
and he
that.
says, "Are you ready for some Franklin football or Wildcat football?"
Have you always done that? Have you
Always
opened
done
the
it.
game?
Yeah.
Always? Yeah.
And he's not the least bit confident when we've had regional finals here or semifinals. He'll say, "We'll see you back here in another week." He
Yeah.
always knows we're going to go on.
When you all come to do a game, do you all have any, some sports fans are kind of superstitious and they have, little rituals or things they'll do for luck or whatever before they start, or you just come in and you know the job and you just do it?
Well, see, I don't work anymore. I quit 3 or 4 years ago after colon cancer, and the steps got steeper every year. So,
I
I
have
agree
noticed
with
that
that.
fact. That's a little
And they
known
won't
fact.
put us in an elevator.
No. It seems like they had 3 rows each year as you try to go all the way
isn't
up.
that the truth? Yeah. No elevator, and the restroom up there would be nice too, wouldn't
Yes,
It would
and
help.
last year when we went to Breckenridge County, they had a new stadium, and that was one thing I was really glad to see, that they do have restrooms up at the Breckenridge County Stadium.
Well,
They
that's
have
something
what?
to think about.
Restrooms.
oh, up that, oh, yeah.
Well, you all wouldn't know how to act if you had
No.
that kind of facility.
No.
No.
Although I think that when other teams have come here to play, that they generally have been maybe treated better here than perhaps our statisticians and radio crew treated on the road. Gene, you might speak to that.
Yes, I would say that's true. I've already said we got kicked out of some places. One year when we were doing the final at Cardinal Stadium, it was at the time, we got moved out of our seats by someone else, and there's no preparation made for us. Sometime I remember when we went to Henderson during the 1975 season, cold as it could be, there'd been absolutely no preparation made, and Stan wrote a little article in the paper, and then Mr. Clark, being from Henderson, rebutted very sharply the point that Stan had taken. But there are some places that just don't put the emphasis on football that we do. We go places where we can tell that the marching band's more important part of the program than football or baseball. Many schools still use the football stadium and football field to play baseball on, and you go to some really miserable places.
Of course, over the years that you all have been up in the press box, you've seen lots of young men go through the program,
Oh, yes.
and you've seen several coaches. So let's talk a little bit about some of the coaches. Was Jim Ornby the coach, Gene, when you
Yes,
started?
yes.
Or okay,
And
He
then
was the
Bob
first-
Brown.
Bob Brown. And,
okay.
Jim Omby was the coach when Bowling Green beat us 65-0.
yeah.
And then, of course, we
Yeah.
we
Now,
got.
where were you when that happened, Gene?
I was in Bowling Green, but
Who were you rooting for?
I moved to Franklin the year that Franklin Simpson beat Bowling Green High 20-13 and kept them from winning the Western Kentucky Conference. So I was down here, so I became a resident of Franklin and a Franklin Simpson football fan at that time, and I've never been sorry. I can say that I have more admiration for Franklin coaches than many that I could name that have been coaches at Bowling Green High.
Well,
Elvis Donaldson accepted.
Okay. Dorothy mentioned the 65-0 defeat that Bowling Green put on us. I think that was maybe before you started keeping stats. It was like about 51. Do you all recall the story that Jim used to tell about getting his revenge for the next year?
He wanted to beat them 66-0.
Well, before he died, I was talking to him about it. He was telling that story, and I, you know how stories get told, but he said that he went and recruited in all the local pool rooms and found him some rough talent and got him enrolled in school long enough to last through the game with Bowling Green, and Franklin won the next year. Now, what his graduation rate was for those players, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I can't remember exactly how many years he was here, and you said, I think Bob Brown was next, right? Now, I think Brown was the coach when we moved into the new stadium. Is that right? Jim?
Jim was still coaching when we moved in.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now after Bob Brown, wasn't Clarky Mayfield here right after that? for a year or so, and,
Yes,
and then,
yes,
then
and then of
Shade
course-
came. So
Then, of course, he lost his life in the fire, but he was
Right,
already gone
that-
from
that-
here when that happened, but that was really a
Beverly Hills
devastating
Supper
blow.
Club fire.
Did you
yeah.
say that Bob Brown was not in the, until we moved into the new stadium?
He was
No,
an
Jim-
assistant
Jim-
coach.
I mean, that Jim was still coaching then? I
Yeah.
didn't remember that.
I was thinking that it was Bob when we moved. In
No,
I
I
was
believe
thinking
Jim
so.
was still coaching when we.
Okay.
Because Lee
Okay.
graduated in '65, and I thought he played under Bob Brown some. But maybe not. Maybe it's,
Well,
maybe.
Bob was
Because Jim went out to
assistant
Potter
for
and Brumfield sometime in the 60s.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
Bob was
remember.
Jim's assistant.
That's
That's
right.
probably where
That's
I'm
right.
getting mixed
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
Okay.
he was his
Right.
assistant.
Okay, maybe that's where I'm getting mixed up.
Who, from your vantage point up there in the press box looking down, which of the coaches that you can remember would get the most excited on the sidelines? Who put on the biggest sideline show? I mean, some coaches, they stand there, they got their arms folded, and, they're
Probably
watching, and
none of
others
our
are marching
coaches,
up
it
and
was
down.
probably visiting coaches. I
Yeah.
can remember Wendell Sears getting really upset a few times, but of course we can see across the field better
Right.
than we can see down in front of
That's
us.
true, you can't see right in front of you, yeah.
But it seems like that the coaching staff that we have now is very well managed. Everyone knows what their job is and who they're supposed to be working with. And, of course, we laughingly say in the press box when the boys aren't playing the way Coach Schlosser wants them to, that it's getting to be prayer meeting time when he'll call time out and go out and get them all in a little group. And usually it does some good.
Yeah. How do you decide, Harry Glen, how much to say? I mean, I know you're going to say what down it is and what the yardage is, but do you try to, on every play, say who carried the ball or who was
Yeah,
leading on
I
the
try to
tackle?
say who
What do you
carried the
try to
ball.
get included in what you
And-
say?
Who got the main hit?
As I said a while ago, with Steve Snyder's been helping the last 3 years, and giving him the one that made tackle. It's hard to see offense and defense both and give credit, and I think the defense needs as much credit as the offense. So I try to do both teams the same way, tell whoever carries the ball, then who makes the tackle, give them credit both ways.
That's the
Okay.
bad part of keeping the statistics, though, and writing it down. You have to watch the ball carriers. You have to watch the backfield. You don't get to give too much attention to the line. You can watch special teams, but a lot of the linemen, I'm sure, I would like to go to a ball game sometime and just watch the line.
Have you ever had to go back and recompute, or you?
Oh, yes, we do. We do.
What do you do in a case like that? You just say, "Whoops, I think I need to do that again," or what do you do?
Well, of course, Mr. Mooneyhan is probably the most thorough reporter that we've ever had. He keeps everything on his board too, so he knows. But it's probably just a check when if we score, I will tell him where the play began, how many plays, how many first downs, a big play, who scored, and the time of possession. But he usually knows it all before I tell him. They just let me go along. They're kind to little old ladies. And
Well, somebody is fast though, because I mean, right after we score, it was a 10-play drive covering so many yards. So somebody is quick on the draw there. to
well,
get all that
usually
done.
Stan bought a book when we first started doing this that is cumbersome now with the new technology. Most people do the scoring on a computer. They have a program that they do, but we still do it with pencil and paper, and it's no problem to be right down to the side which play this is in the series, so you'll know when it's over. And the thing that I enjoy the most is, by the time I get home when we finished our job, is being able to turn on Channel 9 and start watching the video and seeing what we missed. And then when David gets home from the game that he officiated, I'll tell him the bad calls so he can go see Coach Schlosser and see if it was right.
Well,
But we really do appreciate the videos.
and we miss a few of the plays, but I guess we get more than we miss there. And our switcher today, Clint Spivey, he's got a pretty good eye with the camera there, and generally he knows where that ball is going to be and can follow it pretty well. But I think that the fact that the games are live now, I look out in the audience and I see a lot of people with a little earplug in there, and they're listening, and I think that increases their enjoyment of that. And you know, you mentioned that Stan passed away before they carried him regularly. Now, when they played at Western in that championship, that was in the daytime.
Yes, and we did get to carry that game live.
And Stan did get to do that game.
Yes, he
I
got
think.
to do that one live.
Yeah.
And of course, the most amusing thing that happened that day was we all had press passes. Frank Wakefield was the engineer for the radio station, and his pass had been left at the will call gate. And those of you who know Wakey will not be surprised to know that Wakey picked up his daddy's pass and got him a seat. And when Mr. Wakefield got there, Stan had to go down to the booth and get him in so he could be our engineer because Wakey had used
Already
the pass.
had the ticket. You all rather go to a game in warm weather or in cool weather, or does it make any difference to you?
We're inside, it doesn't make any difference.
The only thing that bothers us is if it rains hard on the windows,
Yeah.
or if there's
Can't
so
see
much
through
hot
the-
air in the press box that the windows steam up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know starting in August like we do, it can get,
Well, it can get too hot in there. I mean,
It
it's
can.
uncomfortable
It
when it's
can.
cool.
and you know, you can add coats and
add
things, but you
clothes.
can only take off so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
But now, at the old field, was there heat in that one too? or-
I don't know.
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
I don't believe
remember
so.
that there was.
I believe it was very rudimentary.
I was going to ask Harry Glen if he'd ever, worn 2 pair of socks or
No,
had
I
any.
never did work in the old
See,
stadium.
he didn't
Oh,
want an
okay.
old one.
No,
All
I
right. So
didn't work in
you've
the old
had been in the lap of luxury the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, you're spoiled.
Yeah, true.
Well, I just remember sitting up there with Roy, but it was just almost just benches and a counter.
That's
I mean, it was just very rough.
Mhm. Over the years that you all have done it, have the crowds been steady or gone up and down depending on how much we were winning or not? Or what have you seen as far as number of fans in the years that you've been doing it?
I think we have real loyal fans, and I think that we followed shade when we had some down years, just about as well now. And the road trips, I don't care. People are going to go to Bowling Green.
Mhm.
People are going to go to Glasgow. And we've built a good rivalry now with Allen County, Scottsville. And we always have more people at Russellville than Russellville
But then
does.
Russell, that's true.
And, of course, on our visitor side, it can vary a lot, but I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think as far as the people that travel there. Well, Harry Glen, when you go to a game somewhere else, do you find yourself mentally kind of critiquing what the other announcer did? And if I'd have
Yeah.
been in the booth, I'd have done that better? Or?
Well, I don't know that I could have done any better, but I might criticize them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
It comes natural.
yeah, of course, James Mooneyhan has been broadcasting the games for a long time. And when he retired from the jailer position, they had a retirement dinner for him. And Henry Stone got up to say something, and he talked about James doing the broadcast. And he says, I'm pleased to say that James always remembered one of the first things I taught him, which was never, ever criticize the officiating. And, of course, you all know how firmly Henry's tongue was in cheek when he said that. But I believe that football fans are some of the most, how to put this, I don't know if argumentative is the right word, but if they disagree, they're not bashful about saying
No.
so, right?
No.
Yeah. Have you all, I'll ask Jean this because she's been to more away games, but, and maybe we didn't get beat 65 to nothing or whatever, but if we had defeated the team we were playing or we were visiting, you all ever in any situations where the crowd got kind of rowdy, or you felt like because we're visitors here, we might get...
We've never had a riot.
Well, that's good. Okay.
But
Nobody let the air out of your tires or anything.
I think that the officiating is a little uneven from conference to conference. I think that we have really good officials in our area, but one of the things I'm enjoying the most now is Jackie Radis. We have a woman official who comes to our place 2 or 3 times a year, and I'm glad to see the women getting into the officiating. And course, she works twice as hard as the men because she knows people are watching her.
Mhm. The how much, and you ran the scoreboard, Roy ran the clock, has it always been, what do the officials do down on the field, and what do you all do in the press box as far as the official time, or can the officials, can they overrule something you put on the scoreboard or something on the clock? How does that work?
Well, of course, the scoreboard's not particularly official. I mean, it's
Okay.
for the fans. I mean, as far as the downs and the yardage are concerned, but the timekeeping, of course, they keep it on they keep it. He keeps it up in the.
It's kept in the booth, but usually there's an official on the field that's running the clock
That's
too.
that's what
Okay.
That's what I was trying to
And
say.
he will signal when it's a timeout or when it's a dead
That's
ball,
right. And
that the clock is stopped.
Okay.
Of course, a long
And,
time ago now, they didn't. It was just kept up. It was just kept up in the press box.
That's
Uh-huh.
right. That's right.
Okay.
The official on the field didn't do it.
Well, Harry Glenn, I know you've got your spotter, but do you have glasses you look
No.
through, or you're just, okay, and you're counting on him to be looking through? But do you have certain things that you have learned over the years to kind of look for and just watch out of the corner of your eye, or?
Well, of course, mostly you watch the quarterback to see what he's going to do.
Uh-huh.
And that's about the only thing. As I said, my spotter does miss the good part on the defensive part of it, because I have watched the offense so much that I can't see who makes the tackles and everything.
Right, right.
Well,
Have-
hey, you used to not have a spotter. You used to have to do all that
I know.
yourself.
But I didn't give much credit to defensive tackles.
Well, I know, but I mean, you did it all yourself until
Yeah.
fairly recently.
Well, I think that the parents really appreciate that though, because
Well,
they want
I
to hear
think
that.
they deserve to get credit as much as the
Yeah,
offense,
yeah,
and I think the parents do appreciate it too.
Have you ever been fooled by an offensive play and you would announce one thing and, oh, that's not it, and had to change, or? I know that's happened a few times on
I'm
radio.
sure
I
it
think
is.
Stan would come nearer doing that than Harry Glenn. Because he
But
got so
I-
excited, and I think you'd wait till the play developed maybe a little better.
But I remember one time I left the microphone on,
Uh-huh.
and I've forgotten who the ball player was, but he broke loose on a run down the sideline. I said, hurry up and go on for a touchdown. You're going to make it. You're going to make it. And it was going right over the whole PA system.
Over the whole PA.
And I heard about that for a long time.
Yeah, those open mic situations can get you in a lot of trouble sometimes.
Well, and it's hard to be unbiased.
Well, I mean, you're the Franklin Simpson announcer. I mean, don't people expect you to kind of be a little
Biased?
I mean, yeah.
I would think so.
Not only biased, but you know, boosting of your local.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you say you're Wildcats, you know, because you're talking to a home crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people would expect any different, or isn't it that way when you go on the road?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some places are worse than others.
Yeah, it's worse than that. You can hear when you can hear like when Vanderbilt plays Kentucky. I mean, you know, I mean, it's just natural as anything for the home announcer to be favoring his team.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to offend anybody, but I'd like to. You all have seen a lot of players come and go, and I'm just curious if there's any particular player from years gone by that kind of stands out in your mind that he was just fun to watch. And he wasn't necessarily the best athlete or scored the most touchdowns or whatever, but just as a spectator, and even though you all had official jobs, you were spectators too. Who are some of the players that you remember as just being fun to watch? Don't everybody talk at once. It's bad when we all talk at the same time. Yeah, yeah.
I think we'd all have to agree that Joker Phillips is one of those. Of course, now he's an offensive coach for University of Kentucky.
Yeah, probably come maybe a head coach there somewhere.
I hope so.
Yeah,
Well, of course,
And-
I thought Lee did real well.
I did too.
He made All-State. He was an All-State.
And we've had several All-State players over the
And
years.
Jerry Flippin was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Of course, there again, your ends and your backs are
Yeah.
going to get
They're
most
the
of the,
ones that
are
you
going to get most of the.
Get most of the
And
attention.
the year that Harold Emmett Olman had
What?
that Harold Emmett on with quarterback and Jimmy Young
Jimmy
was
Young,
in.
yes,
Yeah.
Those two stand out in
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah,
Now, when Billy Eubanks was a quarterback, I
Yeah.
enjoyed watching that
yeah.
team. So there have been a lot of them over the years.
And of course, Carrie Bayer, don't forget Carrie.
Yeah.
Lester
Right.
Boyd.
Yeah,
and-
yeah, Lester.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kerry
Lester
Beard's
was-
the one that I kept hollering, run that touchdown. That's who it was.
And of course, we see Bear Stanley all the time. We'll never get over, I don't guess, the fact that Shade practiced him on Thanksgiving Day and he fell in a hole and sprained
Yeah.
his ankle, and we could probably have won that game the next day if.
Yeah, and we did some interviews with Coach Matthews where he talked about that and how if he had it to do over,
Yeah.
he wouldn't practice that way. But I don't think Bear feels like that the coach did anything wrong or blames him for the fact that he didn't get to play in that game.
I think one of the players that was probably the most exciting for me in the last few years has been Andy Smith because of the way he could kick the ball
Oh, yeah.
and place it so well
Mhm.
and punt and do field goals.
Mhm.
I think he's one of the most exciting players that we've had that was a special teams person.
Well, it sounds like that you all have enjoyed the time that you all have been doing this for those
Very much
years.
so.
Absolutely.
So you feel like you plan on keeping on doing it till you either wear out your welcome or they have to carry you out. Are you
They're going to have to build an elevator before long to get us up there and get us back down.
or start taking 3 rows off instead of putting 3 on every
Yeah.
time? Yeah. Well, maybe they could just do a basket carry or something to
Yeah.
get you up there.
Well, Mr.
Yeah.
Mooneyhan called me this afternoon to make our plans for Saturday at Smith Stadium, and he says we'll have at least 2 rest stops going up. So, I think we'll make it though. Despite some of the places that we go and some of the ladders that we have to climb, it just adds to the adventure. Half of the journey is getting there.
Do you miss it, Dorothy, on Friday nights? Do you miss going and doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She can get out on her patio and listen to Harry Glen.
Well,
You can
I
probably hear him
could.
from your house,
Well,
can't you?
I always listen, but yes, I miss it. You can't do anything and be with a group of people whom you're fond of for so many years, but without missing it.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't handle it anymore.
Well, I really appreciate the 3 of you all coming in, and there have been a lot of other people over the years, and I hope to do a future broadcast where I get the Snyders and the Cornwalls and the Hesters and some of those people that have been your all's co-workers in there to come in and have this kind of reminisce. And we're going to be airing this program at the beginning of the week before the first home game of the season, which, as you all know, is going to be on Saturday night, and we play the second game. So hope there'll be a good crowd out for there, and some of them will have their radios on and some of them won't, but now don't mess up, Gene. Keep doing that good job and get those numbers right. And Harry Glenn, what is it you're going to say to them when the band's lined up and the team comes out?
Here come your Wildcats.
All right.
Well, I wanted to tell you the first time after I quit working in the press box, they gave me a season ticket and I went, and it was just too emotional. I could not sit down in the stands and watch it. So I quit going. I just couldn't.
So when you were there and had a job that you had to do,
But
you just
I couldn't enjoy it just sitting down in the stands by myself. But anyway,
Huh.
that's an aside.
well, I would have thought it would have been a lot more anxiety knowing when I got to put these numbers up there right and all of that. But no, that was a piece
No,
of
it's
cake.
too,
huh?
too emotional sitting by myself.
Yeah. Well, but you always got the radio, right?
Yeah.
Listen on the radio. Well, thank you all. I have enjoyed having you all come in. And, I think a lot of people come to a game and they'll look up there and there's all that row of windows and there's people behind it, but they don't really think about who those people are. But it takes a lot to keep up with all the statistics and get the game on and all of that. And I'm glad you all
It's something
Come
we
in
all
and share.
enjoy doing, though.
That's right.
Well, and that's good.
Yeah.
And probably it's a good thing you enjoy it because I don't imagine the pay scale's all that great.
our pay doubles every year.
Oh, doubles every year.
Yes. Twice 0 is still 0, and 4 times, and
Yeah.
8 and 12.
Gene, I looked up in that, we remember the program that the pictures were in, and I found it, and it was 1996.
1996.
It's 9 years ago, the 1 year that they had all, do you remember it?
Yes.
No, I don't remember.
Utley.
You didn't get a copy of the program? Yeah, they had you and me and Gene and Bobby Cornwall.
Okay.
In
So they made a
19
picture in,
Yes.
in the
we
press
were, our,
box?
our picture was in the program that year,
I
1996.
don't remember that, seeing
Oh.
that.
We'll have to get Harry Glen a picture.
Yeah.
There
we'll
you
have
go.
to get in one of
There
those.
you go. All right. Well, thanks again, you all.
Thank you.
My
for having
guests
us.
for this program have been 3 members of the Pressbox team for Franklin Simpson Wildcat football. Let me tell you again who they are so that you can keep straight who's who. Next to me here, Jean Almand, who has done it for half a century. She started when she was 3. Harry Glen Hughes, who is holding the Hughes tradition and 31 years and counting. And Dorothy Steers, who's done it. Are we going to settle on a number, Dorothy, or are we just going to?
I would say close to 30.
All right. So as you can see, as we said at the beginning, between them here, 100 years of experience in the press box. I think most schools would be hard-pressed to beat that record for longevity. I think that's how you say that word.
That's a good part.
All right. Well, I better quit before I mispronounce anything else. My thanks again to my 3 guests, and my thanks to you for watching. Appreciate you joining us for Frankly Franklin.